So, a lot of people who are feeling stressed and are in relationships eat poorly, which means that they have a bad relationship with food. And unfortunately, some people, when they're in a relationship, they do it together because both individuals aren't feeling good. And then they start stress eating together. And then this snowballs into just developing bad habits, bad patterns, but also the food that affects you. What do I mean by that? Well, food affects our entire bodily functions. You are what you eat. And that's a very true statement, as basic as that sounds. But your food affects your mood, it affects your stability, it affects your hormones, it affects your whole system of your entire body. So when you're eating poorly, you are feeding your mind bad food, inflamed, inflammatory food. You're feeding your mind food that is just going to please you in the short term, but long term will make you feel like crap. The food that you eat really supports you mental, emotionally, and physically. So when you're eating bad food and you're stressed, the combination of the two can be just a firecracker. It can set you off where your mood is all over the place, your patience is nowhere, you aren't processing things properly because your body's working overtime trying to process the bad food that you put into it. You just feel sluggish and feel unmotivated. And so it's really important, especially because stress affects our cognitive function, to eat food that doesn't debilitate us, to eat food that's not just a comfort food that suits you in that right place and right time. Because little do you know that it's a very short lived time and it's going to come back anyway. So it's a very short term pleasurable sensation you're getting, and yet it'll leave you feeling detrimental after, with again a lot of sense of guilt, a lot of anger, and a lot of criticism towards your own self. So our food helps us really support ourselves through stress, and when you're stressed out, your body doesn't need more stress from bad food. It needs good food to support you. So it can help you make these good decisions, like I just talked about. So it can help you communicate better and deal with your stress better. So it can help you with your thoughts and how you think. So the words that come out of your mouth are better and more self serving. But when you're eating bad food, all of that is suppressed. All of that is null and void. It doesn't exist. So, really thinking about your diet and how that, and I'm not saying diet as in go on a diet. I mean like diet as in the food that you take in, the quality of food, what kind of food, where do you get your food, and how this food actually can help you improve your stress levels. So that's a whole nother video. I think that that will have to be broken up into a series of parts about food. I have my mindful kitchen series where I try to bring recipes and food that really helps benefit you and support you as you do deal with stress. And stress doesn't go away. We will always have a degree of stress in our life. So that's why I feel it's so important to talk about stress and to put so much attention on stress, because it can deplete so many parts of our lives, yet we don't notice that. Specifically, here in our relationships, where we don't realize our stress impacts our relationships detrimentally. And really, as I mentioned, being highly sensitive, I was highly sensitive. And I was really sensitive to things that most people maybe were like, okay, what's going on with you? Or they get kind of, they stand back and they're like, wow, kind of blows them away or whatever it may be. But you're highly sensitive because, like I said, you're always in that fight and flight mode. So anything can trigger at that point. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be even a film that you watch or something that you witness outside at the shopping center, or it could just be a comment that you hear can really trigger that stress. And so, even in a relationship, perhaps somebody says something indirectly, not really meaning it, this mannerism, or whatever it may be, it triggers your stress. And then it can snowball into an argument. And then also it can turn into thoughts that maybe you have that start going dark and negative. And so your interpretation of whatever's being said between you and the other person gets taken out of context because you're in this heightened sensitivity mode. So at this point, as I mentioned, it's really hard to problem solve when you're highly sensitive because you're not thinking clearly, you're not thinking rationally, you're not thinking logically, you're thinking emotionally. So at this point, this is where we need to really evaluate our thinking, really evaluate our sensitivity levels, really evaluate what's going on with what our thoughts are and what's being triggered around us for our stress. And sometimes you have to know that I'm not saying because you're highly sensitive that individual has the right to say what they said. If the place and time of what they said suits a narrative or suits a situation and they meant it in a very derogatory or in a mean way, then by all means there needs to be action taken upon that. But it's when there isn't that underlying meaning to it, or there isn't that concept of trying to hurt your feelings or be negative towards you, when there isn't that underlying there, then it really is your perspective or your interpretation of what they're saying. And there's such a fine line with that. It's about knowing how the person is and what they're trying to deliver to you and where that's coming from. And also knowing when it's coming from a hurtful, dangerous place. So that's why you act in a way where it keeps you safe. So I'll use myself as an example once again, because I just admitted to you that I was in that high sensitivity mode. Sometimes somebody could say something to you and it triggers something. It triggers you to think like, is that person undermining me? Do they not trust me? Do they not think that I know what I'm doing? Like it makes all these ruminating thoughts of why is this individual saying this to you? So you've already put your own twist or spin onto that, onto whatever they're saying. But if you're able to take what they're saying at face value and not attach your emotion, not attach your thoughts, not attach your feelings, I know it sounds too simple, but if you don't attach these things to what they're saying, then you don't have to take it in any way, shape, or form. You could just take it as they say it or ask it. So we really lock on to this way of putting our own thoughts or putting our own words or already answering the person or injecting our perspective or our thoughts before even sometimes a person's done saying what they say. We're already thinking about how to respond. How can I counter this? Or how can I prove otherwise? Or you're already thinking way before this person's done talking or whatever. So you're not really listening to what the other person is saying. And for my own self, listening is my greatest quality. It could do me really well. It can also do me wrong sometimes because sometimes I'll allow people to talk way too much and then I I start to just agree with them and then I just allow them to have their space and say what they need to say. And when I do that, I allow people to talk so much that I'm evaluating, is it necessary for me to even say anything or not? But sometimes listening could be your greatest strength because you hear where the person's coming from. You hear what words they're using. You hear what they're saying or trying to convey to you without attaching. It's really critical to know that you can't attach your own thoughts or opinion or anything alongside it, because then you're making it your own and you're changing what they're trying to say. So this is really hard to do. This takes practice. But the more you try to just listen objectively without interrupting it with your own dialogue in your own head, then you'll truly actually start listening to what that person's saying, what their needs are, what they're asking from you. And what I like to do back, and what I've been practicing to do back, is to respond back with what they're saying in their words. So at least I know that I have reciprocated what they've said to me. I acknowledge it. My mind has processed it. I've heard them. And they can feel also that they've been acknowledged, that they've been heard, that their words have made it through to me. So, in my opinion, for relationships, that's so important because, like I said, it takes two to tango. It's a two-way thing. Communication is so critical that listening is part of that communication. And when you listen, when you have strong listening skills, you can truly hear what that person is asking or wanting or needing. Or maybe it's nothing at all, but they just need to speak their mind and have a soundboard. So if listening is not a strength for you, it's something you can certainly develop. And if it is a strength for you, then know where you can listen in relationships where it's important, and know when to then take control of your own self, of how you respond in an appropriate way, where it's not just you listening and just being a sounding board, where you can have this two-way dialogue back and forth. And that's how I believe relationships thrive, relationships improve, relationships grow, is when we keep having this two-way dialogue and speak each other's language. And it's possible to speak each other's language if you are a good listener, if you try to use what they're saying and interpret what they're saying based on the words that they use in the context that they say, rather than putting your own spin on things. So that's so important in being present in a relationship, being able to meet the needs of your own self and of others in a relationship. It's really important to bring that strong listening characteristic. And if this is something that you need to strengthen or you need to do better with, there are ways around it. You can seek therapy to find out why your listening skills aren't that great, why things agitate you when you hear them, and really get in tune with what is going on with you. Sometimes people are the cause of your problems, but it's how you interpret them. It's how you let them affect you. It's how you let them rule your life. And that's the whole purpose of the videos that I do and talking about these things is, yes, there is accountability on other individuals for the situations that may occur in your life, the way you may feel about life, the things that occur after these other things occur in your life, your past life, all these things. So it's bringing awareness about the fact that, yes, there is accountability on others, but it's the accountability on yourself and how that results in the way you deal with things, the way you let things affect you, the way you let things control your life, the narrative in your life, the decisions that you make, the story of your life. And what I'm here to do is empower you to know that you can change yourself so much. You can improve yourself. You can heal yourself. You can modify yourself in a way so much that things that used to be a problem for you no longer can be or should be or will be a problem anymore. And once you have this domino effect through life with the stresses that you experience, then you just get better and better at dealing with them and not allowing them to pull you down to that really dark, forsaken, terrifying, fearful way and part of life. It can just allow you to still live a good quality of life without being dampered and hounded down by them. So this is just empowering you to know that in your relationships, there is always two people. It takes both individuals to really look at themselves and work on themselves and then come together and work together as well. So it's a two-way thing. This is always my opinion. I'm not saying it's facts, but for my own self, from experience, it takes each individual to do their own healing work. It takes myself to do everything that's on my plate and deal with everything there. And it takes the other individual to deal with everything that's on their plate. And then when we come together, it's a beautiful, beautiful union. And when that union comes together, not saying that there won't be trouble, there won't be issues, there won't be turmoil, there won't be circumstances that may cause challenges, but it's how you ride it out as individuals, as your own independent individuals, and then how you ride it out together. And when you have that moral agreement together about how you want to deal with things, how you both interact and communicate, it can make everything so much more easier to deal with, so much more simpler to manage, so much easier to just be able to find some sort of resolution between each other, solution between both of you. And always find that silver lining, that harmonious place, and be able to come together